Hey fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. Coming up next, we have the latest news from the MMA world as Jon Jones starts trashing Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva is thinking about Jones, and Renan Barão is waiting. We'll also be joined by our MMA panel to break everything down, so let's get started. The Jon Jones and Chael Sonnen feuding has already begun. Just a few days ago, it was announced that they'll be coaching the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, and on a recent conference call, Jones didn't hold back. He said that the usage of TRT is absolutely terrible. Meanwhile, Sonnen, one of the older fighters who has been approved for the therapy, had no comment. And it sounds like Anderson Silva is starting to warm up to the idea of the ultimate super fight against Jon Jones. In a recent interview, the fighter said that he still doesn't want to fight Jones, but if they were to go ahead with the fight, it would have to be at a catchweight, and that neither the middleweight or light heavyweight belts should be on the line. And the UFC's interim bantamweight champion, Renan Barão, says he will not be fighting anyone else before he gets his hands on the regular belt holder, Dominick Cruz, for a title unification match. Barão's coach recently said that they will wait as long as it takes for Cruz to come back from a torn ACL. There are your latest newsmakers. Let's hear what our MMA panel has to say about them and more. And we've got John squared on the panel today.
Ooh, Sarah, I like it.
Yeah, I'm going there. Guys, Renan Barão waiting for Dominick Cruz. I think it's a smart decision, but let's hear what you guys have to say.
I don't think there's any harm in waiting for Dominick Cruz, nor do I feel this is a situation like with Carlos Condit waiting for George St. Pierre, where that fight just means so much more financially for Carlos Condit. In this case, we are talking about a main event with Dominick Cruz, where I think if Renan Barão were to fight someone in the interim, it's not like you're risking the gigantic payday in terms of fighting Dominick Cruz.
Well, I mean, for Renan Barão, we're talking about maybe it could be a big payday, and it could be a life-altering experience. When you look at the 135-pound division, it is emerging as one of the top divisions because there's so many fighters around the world that fit into that division. One guy in particular, Michael McDonald, you take a fight with Michael McDonald and that could change everything because in my opinion, Michael McDonald is the future of 135 pounds. A very athletic, very talented fighter, and I wouldn't be surprised if he beat Renan Barão. So you take that fight, you run the risk of losing your interim title and a shot at whatever percentage it is of the pay-per-view. So I think it's a smart move by the Brazilian to wait for Dominick Cruz.
I think regardless, if he beats Cruz, Michael McDonald is probably on deck right after that fight. Getting news now that UFC 155, it had been discussed of who Forrest Griffin was going to fight after Chael Sonnen was removed from that fight, and he will now be taking on Jon Jones. We've got Phil Davis stepping into that spot, coming off that win over Wagner Prado. Do you like this fight with Forrest and Phil Davis?
Yeah, I think it makes sense when you look at the division. Forrest, a former champion. Phil Davis seems to be on the rise. However, you look at his last performance against Prado. Yes, he had some great takedowns, but it doesn't seem like Prado had some really good takedown defense. For Forrest Griffin, we know that he was preparing for Chael Sonnen, so you know that he was sprawling his ass off in preparation for his fight with Chael Sonnen. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup because stylistically, yes, Phil Davis might be a better grappler in terms of getting the fight down to the ground, but Forrest Griffin, very underrated in the jiu-jitsu department, and as well, I think he has the advantage in the stand-up department, and I think Phil Davis really needs to sharpen his skills in the striking department because that's been the criticism right now of Mr. Wonderful.
That, I think, is the evolution everyone is now expecting from Phil Davis, is once his striking can really complement his wrestling, then you have a really dangerous 205er on your hands that is in that upper echelon.
I agree. And the problem with Forrest Griffin is he knows how to spoil the party. This is a guy that has victories over Shogun, has victories over Quinton Jackson, and is a massive guy. I think that if Phil Davis doesn't have the right strategy, he's not going to win this fight because Forrest Griffin is a very intelligent fighter, and I wouldn't be surprised if he dictates the pace.
And you look at this UFC 155 card right now, obviously the year-end show, they were going to build this up really big. We've also got Chris Weidman, Tim Boetsch on that card, which I think great matchmaking, especially for Chris Weidman. Not a lot of people saw that Mark Munoz fight because it was on Fuel. Here you're putting him on one of the biggest shows of the year, and it's going to expose him to a lot of people. And you throw in other names like a Forrest Griffin, Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez. you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on this card.
Yeah, I agree, and that's been, again, the criticism of Chris Weidman. I know fighters like Michael Bisping, they're interested in that fight, but they feel that Chris Weidman needs to get exposure. He needs to get his name out there, and I think a victory over Tim Boetsch will kind of move him to that next level, the 185-pound division.
Now, a promotion you want to chat about, the World Series of Fighting. They debut November the 3rd in Las Vegas, Nevada. Ray Sefo is kind of at the helm as the president of this organization. We've seen a lot of promotions come and a lot of promotions end up in the cemetery. This is one, John, going into this one, this is a time buy on the NBC Sports Network. So I already look at that as, a giant expense you're undertaking just to get your product on television and not getting rights fees.
Yeah, that's true. But the bottom line is that's what promotions have to do. They have to invest money. We saw it from Bodog, we've seen it from Bellator, and we've seen it from the UFC. You have to take your time. You have to find a way to get your product seen. And if it means that you have to pay for people to see your product, and I can't say I disagree with the move going to NBC Sports. This is formerly known as the Versus Network, where people used to see the World Extreme Cage Fighting Organization. So they have a built-in audience. So I think it's a pretty good move. Yes, they're based in Las Vegas. It's a fight city. Ray Sefo, a K1 veteran. So I think not only that, they also have people that used to work for the UFC working for the World Series of Fighting. So they just have to get their product out there. My biggest concern is that they don't overspend. You look at this card, so many big names, Andrei Arlovsky, Miguel Torres. This is the type of fighter who always comes forward, is always trying to be exciting. And for Andrei Arlovsky, it's the same type of thing. He's a heavyweight, he's athletic, he knows how to finish fights, and whether he wins or loses, somebody normally gets knocked out.
And it's got Boss Rutan and Renzo Gracie on commentary as we send it on back to Sarah Davis.
Thanks, guys. And if you haven't already, check out our website, fightnetwork.com, to join our fantasy pool. That's where you can win all sorts of prizes from Everlast. Coming up next on Fight News Now Extra, we have a preview of Cage Warriors FC 49 and why you should vote.